Awesome. Good to know. And share screen. Okay. Can you see my Zoom screen?
Yep.
Okay. So get this out of the way. Come on. Why is it not cooperating? Play. There we go. Can you see that in full screen? Yes?
Yep.
Remember, everybody's muted, Les, so you're asking
Yeah,
us.
I know.
So yeah, we're shaking our heads.
Thumbs up, thumbs up. I can see the thumbs up and yeah. Okay,
Yeah, we're okay, good.
good. Here we are, finally. Deep breath. This presentation is called The Methodology of Attaining Plenitude. And it's about creating success in uncertain times. And I do not need to go into detail. I don't think about what kind of uncertain times we already live in. You know that. But I guess I should say this, and I think you probably already know this too if you've done a little studying of history, that in times of chaos, while it may cause probably the majority of people to get paralyzed psychologically, emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever, even financially, it is in times of chaos and uncertainty when people who have the wherewithal are able to take leadership roles, create success in businesses, and create for themselves and for the world new opportunities and ways of going about living in the world. It is in times of chaos when that is most possible for people. So in these times when we're all inclined to perhaps think about all the shit that's going on in the world, we should probably perhaps instead focus on the opportunity we have in front of us to be agents of change, not only in our own lives, but in the world at large. So, as I mentioned on the sign up page, I chose the word plenitude with some intentionality. Kind of chose it. I woke up in the morning and there it was in my head, and it's not a word I don't think ever used before in my life. I knew what it meant, I thought, but it was not something that was part of my conversation. I don't think I've even ever written it down in one of my books or essays or anything like that before. And so I looked it up, of course, to see if it was an appropriate word to use. And I found out that in English, it's very simple. It's similar to the word plethora. It comes from the same kind of root, and it means basically abundance and prosperity and completeness and fullness, plenitude. However, kind of like entrepreneur, plenitude is actually a French word. And in French, it means the state of a great degree of development, the fullness of an intensely and integral force, a feeling of the fullness of being, and strangely, joie de vivre. Joie, am I pronouncing that correct, Catherine? Joie de vivre, joy of life, okay? So my intent in naming this and presenting this to you is to provide you with that fullness of an intensely and integral force, and that force being the power of conscious creation. So I'm going to briefly touch on two things before we get started with the actual presentation. The first is that the fundamental assumption of science, human logic, the way we go about living our lives, everything human, the fundamental assumption is that there is the law of cause and effect. So when we or scientists or whoever looks to understand how things happen or why things occur, it's because we assume there must be a cause. I mean, we wouldn't even look for an answer if we didn't assume there was a cause, right? So nevertheless, despite the fact that all of science and all of essential human logic is based on the fundamental understanding that all effects have causes, most people and you can see this around you. I've been observing it for years. Most people try and create success in life by manipulating effects, okay, instead of working with the causal. So we will be looking at the causal here today. That is how to create effects. And the results in your life that you have are effects. They are not the cause, they are the effects. The second thing I want to mention before we get started is that gratitude is the key that unlocks the door to your unlimited potential to make things manifest. And for years, I have been telling people to form two simple habits. The first being to begin each day with an expression of gratitude for the multitude of blessings you already have in life. And to say that this one simple practice brings appreciation for the abundance of life you already have. And you know you have a bunch of abundance, especially in comparison to other people. And it energetically aligns you with the principle of abundance and therefore makes it possible for more abundance to come into your life. So the second thing to do, first thing is to express gratitude in the morning when you arise for the things you already have. The second thing to do each day at the close of the day is to express your gratitude in advance for all the blessings that are about to come to you. The things that you are in the process of creating or making manifest in your life. And if you do this just before you go to sleep, it works in the background of your subconscious mind and it produces the belief and impels you to act in congruity with your ideals. More than that, it is important to develop a continuous attitude of gratitude so that you exist in a state of gratitude at all times. What is not included here in Tesla's quote is the word resonance. It is, and I've looked at this a lot, it is resonance that forms the physical universe, that creates matter out of energy, okay? And later on, I'm going to talk about how resonance is important to your ability to create and how it's important in its relationship to the law of attraction, okay? Anyway, with that said, let's take a nice deep breath, relax, slow down, and allow yourself to feel that sense of gratitude. Chill out, be present, and let's go through this presentation step by step. One, I think on 3 of my Facebook posts and on the invitation promo video, if you watched it, I mentioned how it was scheduled specifically for today so that if you would have time to prepare for the Lionsgate portal that's opening up on Monday the 8th, right? I originally planned to schedule this 2 weeks later in the month to give me time to properly market it. But it came to me that I needed to do it today in advance of the Lionsgate portal. So allow me to explain a little bit why we're here 2 days in advance and without my hopefully 2 weeks extra of marketing time. And I have to confess, when I first heard the term Lionsgate portal several years ago, I thought it was just another new age fairy tale kind of thing. And I kind of dismissed it altogether. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept of Lionsgate, it occurs every year in August on the 8th. So the 8th day of the 8th month, when the sun is in Leo and the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, Ronan, Sirius, slides out from behind the sun and makes itself known. It lines up with the sun, Orion's belt, the moon, and Earth. They're all aligned. And anyway, this concept is definitely not new age. In my research into the Lionsgate portal, I found out that it goes back at least as far as ancient Egyptian times when the heliacal rising of Sirius began to be celebrated seriously. So we know that the 3 great pyramids in the Giza plateau were built to align perfectly with the 3 stars in Orion's belt. So this stuff was of massive importance to this culture, because you don't undertake the incredible engineering feat of building those 3 incredible structures to align up perfectly with the 3 stars in Orion's belt at the time when Sirius rises in the sky. Now, it was important to them because it kind of more or less matched with the annual flooding of the Nile, which was the beginning of their fertile season for planting crops. But there's much, much more to the story. In the ancient mystery schools that were based on the emerald tablets of Thoth, the rising of Sirius and the alignment, the coincidental alignment with Orion's belt, the 3 stars of Orion's belt, was said and taught that it opened up a direct communication link to Prime Creator, which of course, in our case and of our interest, is the source of our personal creativity. And we'll get to that. So obviously back then, our Gregorian calendar was not in use. And so the date 8/8, August the 8th, had absolutely no relevance because it didn't exist. But this particular day, all this stuff happened and lined up, was still celebrated as being unique and special. And we know today that the numerology of the number 8 that stands for also the bridge between the material and the spiritual realms, and it stands for power and wealth, abundance, etc., prosperity. And the Chinese go absolutely crazy over the number 8, and every year they bid for the license plate with 8 8s on it. And they spend $1 million to own that license plate for the period of 1 year, just because they superstitiously believe that the number 8 is going to bring them the wealth that it represents. Anyway, I was really, really surprised when in going to my weekly ceremonial sessions with my Mayan shaman, heard him start to talk about the Lion's Gate portal a couple of weeks ago. And I had no idea that it was tied into any kind of ancient Mayan lore. So there's the Egypt slide for you. As it turns out, there is a Mayan calendar, a second Mayan calendar, in addition to the main one that everybody was focused on back in 2012 when the December 21st, 2012, when the long count calendar was out of the majority, at the multitude of calendars that the Mayans have that are all interlocked and twist around together. The long count calendar was coming to a close on December 21st, 2012, and some people were saying it was the end of the world and blah, 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 blah. And that's the one main Mayan calendar that originates out of the center of the Mayan culture in Guatemala and spread throughout the rest of the Mayan culture. But as it turns out, I discovered when I visited Palenque almost exactly a year ago now, there was a secondary Mayan calendar that was excavated from the Temple of Inscriptions in this tomb that you see in front of you of the great King Pakal, whose sarcophagus lid is quite renowned and looks kind of like him managing a spaceship. Anyway, that calendar is called Dream Spell, and it is pretty much the same calendar. It's based on the same 20-day count, and it has the same multitude of rings denoting different time spans, including the long count. But it also talks about this particular time that we're in being the time of the 6th sun, okay? And this 6th sun and this particular Lion's Gate portal, which is the first Lion's Gate portal of this new year of the calendar round that ended on, I believe, July 25th, and then they had the 5 days of silence, and then here we are into the first Lion Gate portal of this new year. This is the time when the veil between the physical reality, or what we have come to call 3D reality, and the higher dimensional reality of the 6th sun, or what a lot of people are calling 5D reality these days, is going to be open. The veil is going to be the thinnest, and that access privilege to 5D reality is going to be accessible to those people who are in the correct state of spiritual beingness, is what my Mayan shaman has to say about it. Anyway, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock and on the 7th, I'm going to be attending a ceremony with him in which he is going to be preparing us psychologically and spiritually for that portal opening on Monday, the 8th. And then on Monday, the 8th at 8 p.m. in the evening, I'm attending another ceremony, and hopefully the portal's going to open for us and we're going to get to see all kinds of magical stuff, which I normally do at his ceremonies anyway. Anyway, so that's why this event, Plenitude, ended up being scheduled 2 days before so that we could get you through this process and you could be as attuned as possible to avail yourself to that 5D higher dimensional reality, the bridge to the time of the sixth sun. And we're going to still in this presentation supply you with some very 3D existing reality that we live in, 3D tools for the creation of success. And we're going to get to that later on. But first, I want to go through the spiritual aspect of things, the metaphysical aspect of things, and the basic causal aspect of how reality comes into being and how you can create your success using the energetic flow that is the universal, based on universal principles. So in order to do that and to get us into the right headspace, I am now going to play a little video for you, which will hopefully set you up psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally for the presentation that we're going to get into in a second. So enjoy. All right. Take a nice, long, slow, deep breath in. Hold it for a brief moment. And as you breathe out, allow yourself to become complete. Oh. Oh. Well, that worked out real well. Hang on a second. I've lost my mouse. I've lost everything. Absolutely everything's gone. Little interference from the energetic realms here. There we are. Got my mouse back, I think. Okay, so have I stopped my share? Somebody unmute
Yes,
themselves.
you have.
And tell me.
You've stopped your share. Yes, Les.
Yeah, no, we're not here. We're just
All
back.
right, okay. Hang on, I'm gonna start us over again. So share screen. And
Well, you're back.
there,
Oh, there we go.
I'm back. I'm back. And we're playing slideshow and we're playing video. All right. Take a nice, long, slow, deep breath in. Hold it for a brief moment. And as you breathe out, allow yourself to become completely and totally relaxed. This is the book of you. It is the story of you, past, present, and future. It is about the fullness of self. You, your true self. Awareness of the totality of self, existing within the void, beyond the constraints of time and space, is freedom. It is the place of no space. It is the now, beyond time. It is now, here, and it is nowhere. And yet, it is everywhere. It is omnipresent and non-existent at the same time. It knows nothing because it is resident in nothingness, the void, and yet it knows all things, even the potential of all things. It is omniscient and innocent at the same time. It can imagine all things, and it can imagine nothing. And thus, it can create all things from nothingness. It is therefore omnipotent by choice. It is the awakened consciousness of what we call the divine. This awakened consciousness transcends time and space. It permeates all things within time and space. And it is resident in each and every part of the known universe, including the human creature. And it is not separate from any part of its creation, and no part of its creation is separate from it. It is fully and completely immersed within its own creation. And this creation is equally full of it, all parts being integral to the self-organized evolutionary patterning of this consciousness. And as it explores its ability to transform, to mutate, to recreate itself, to fully self-actualize, this divine or universal consciousness infused itself into the creation of the universe some 13.8 billion years ago or so, and has evolved to now, where it can look into the mirror through your eyes, recognizing itself in the vastness of the galaxies, the minuteness of subatomic particles, and the splendor of a self-aware biological entity called the human creature. The creator became the creature. Now the creature must become the creator. This is your destiny, your task, your journey, and your quest to become whole again, at one with your creator, complete within yourself and able to recognize your origin, your divinity, and your ability to create. You have been immersed in a dream, the illusion of Maya, the dream of samsara. That dream is now over. It is time to awake. It is time to be awestruck. It is time to become fully aware. It is time to wake up. It is time to grow up. And it is time to clean up. And it is time to experience samadhi, the blissful awareness of self as one with the all that is all. All right. So despite that somewhat esoteric opening of talking about Lionsgate portals and then that little open-eyed meditation talking about the infinitude of you and your connection to the ultimate source of all that is, there is going to be plenty of in-depth info in this presentation for all you left brain folks. And we will get to that, okay? So this presentation is going to be divided into two parts. And we'll go through the first part fairly quickly and get to the second part, the meat of the matter, in a little while. Part one is going to be the metaphysics, if you will. You can think of it as the ethereal, okay? The theory, the energetic. I call it the science of success, right? The second part will be the physics, it'll be the practical, the technology of success, it'll be the application, which is probably what a lot of you are looking for, is application. Okay, so that's how this is going to proceed. So first, let's get into the science. And in order to talk about how science turns into technology and then creates results, tangible, real-world results in the world, I'm going to go through two little examples for you, okay? This is so that it anchors the whole concept of the ethereal knowledge, pure knowledge, if you will, what I call the science of success, so that it anchors the whole thing into you so that you grasp what I'm trying to get through to apply the technology in order to actually create the success. And this is how life works in our world, right? Somebody comes up with a way of thinking about things, it becomes a certain set of knowledge, it becomes science eventually, and then some person, for whatever reason, takes that understanding, that knowledge, that science, and uses it to create some sort of technology that is applicable to the lives of other people, and in some cases changes the world so dramatically that it becomes unrecognizable to the generation before. And we have here two examples that I'm going to go through fairly quickly with you. Okay, the first is the example of my cell phone. Okay, which is now being used because the Wi-Fi here is all screwed up, which is now being used as a Wi-Fi hotspot to broadcast this message to you. We're going to use that as an example. Okay, in 1897. A German scientist by the name of Heinrich Hertz. And yeah, that's the guy they named the measurement of the frequency of waveforms after, not the guy who invented the car rental company, but the guy they named the cycles of energy after, frequency of energy, cycles per second, Hertz after. Okay, so like the frequency of my cell phone, if this is 4G, is somewhere between 2 and 8 gigahertz, and the resonant frequency of your DNA is around 40 gigahertz. Okay, that kind of hertz. Anyway, Mr. Hertz, while doing scientific research into the different wavelengths of light, discovered the photoelectric effect. Okay, he found out that energy was being released when light was focused on certain materials. He knew it was happening. His experiments showed it to be happening. He just did not know how or why, that when light was shone upon certain types of materials, energy was being released. Okay. It was several years before it was ascertained that the energy being released was in the form of electrons getting kicked out of their atomic structures. Still, no one could figure out how waves of light could cause electrons to get excited enough to kick out of electronic structures. So removed from an atom, an electron got kicked out of an atom, and that thus released energy. Nobody knew how a wave of light could do that when striking certain materials. And then along came a guy by the name of Albert Einstein, who in 1907 proposed the theory that sometimes light would behave not only as waves, but also as particles called photons. And he won the Nobel Prize for that theory of photonics. Okay, he didn't win it for his two theories of relativity, the special and the general theories of relativity. He didn't even win it for his famous formula E equals mc squared. He won it for his theory of photonics, in which he said that light can behave as particles as well as waves. Okay, anyway, that's the science. Okay, when light photons hit certain objects, they release electrons in the form of energy. That's the science. And later on, about 60 years later, at a division of NASA called the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, an engineer by the name of Eugene Lally proposed that the electrical signals produced by these escaping electrons when light was focused on silicon could be used to produce imagery. Okay? Later on in the 90s, another JPL team led by Eric Fossum researched ways of improving the complementary metal oxide semiconductors, in other words, silicon dioxide chips, and which were the image sensors in order to significantly miniaturize cameras on interplanetary spacecraft and yet still be able to maintain scientific image quality. An image sensor, in this case, is something that contains an array of photodetectors called pixels that collect single particles or photons of light. And the word pixel, just in case you don't know, is short for picture element. And it was first published in a paper in 1965 by another JPL engineer called Frederick Billingsley. The photons entering the pixel are converted to electrons, forming an electrical signal, and a processor then assembles this electrical symbol into a picture. So it sounds complicated, but in many ways, it's really like what happens when you see through your eyes. The lenses of your eyes collect photons, and at the back of the eye, the retina converts these photons into electrical impulses that travel along the optic nerve to the thalamus, where they are processed and then sent to the visual cortex at the back of your brain and form the image. Relatively similar in concept. Anyway, in the late 1990s, NASA engineers designed these CMOS sensors that convert photons to electrical signals and then images. And then suddenly, just like suddenly, all of a sudden, we all have cell phones with cameras, literally, suddenly. So late 1990s, they designed the CMOS sensors, right? And in June of 2000, Samsung invents the first cell phone with a camera that can take a picture and transmit it. It's called the V200, right? In June of 2000. Just a couple of years after NASA invents the sensors, and you can look at them on the screen here, okay? Pretty soon, Nokia, in 2005, Nokia gets into the game, and very quickly, because of the cameras built into the Nokias, becomes the largest seller of camera equipment on the planet, almost putting Kodak out of business, causing Kodak to change its whole business model from selling old-fashioned regular cameras with film and change their whole business model, okay? So what? Okay, here we are on Zoom, right? Talking to each other, looking at each other. We see each other. You can see the presentation, blah, 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 blah. All of it based on this discovery, this scientific discovery of a guy by the name of Hertz, more than 400 years ago, okay? Worked out through the technology of JPL people, transformed our lives. I mean, where would we be? I mean, we couldn't take selfies, couldn't take pictures of our food, post it onto Facebook. I mean, my goodness, the world would fall apart. Anyway. In the course of my lifetime, we went from being able to take black and white images with the Kodak box camera, very simple box camera, black and white photographs, to where we can now take the digital, beautiful digital images of the universe that we all see now on the James Webb Space Telescope, okay? That's an incredible amount of change in the period of my lifetime, right? Now, bear with me just a little bit. I mean, us old folks, I'm 72, like to talk about all the radical changes that have taken place in our lifetime. And I'm going to talk now about another one that took place within the same period of time, my lifespan, okay? But it's going to be not when I was alive. We're going to go back now to 1769, when James Watt invented the steam engine, okay? He improved upon it in 1774 to produce pretty much exactly what we're still using today when we're using a steam engine, for whether it's producing electricity in the plants that they use to produce electricity or whatever else they're using it in, okay? His work, his steam engine, was based on earlier work by a guy by the name of Thomas Savery, who built a steam powered pump in 1698, and in 1712, another guy by the name of Thomas Newcomen invented the piston system for utilizing the power derived from boiling water to create steam. And in case you didn't know that, Thomas Newcomen's piston system is still in use in your automobile today, so you can thank him for that invention, okay? So that steam engine produced it from the time of its invention, okay, in 1769, within 70 years, transformed the complete entire world from an agrarian society to an industrial society in the space of 70 years, in the space of my lifetime, okay? That was the technology that changed it. The science of that technology is the work of a guy by the name of Robert Boyle, who you probably studied in your classes in school. I mean, Mr. Boyle in 1662 published his work about the behavior of gases, right? And so the science of the steam engine is based on Boyle's work 100 years later. Okay, it produced steam, blah, 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 blah. Here we are, the Industrial Revolution, and here we are today with all of the modern changes in the world that we have today in that short period of time. So that's how powerful the application of science can be in the world. And that's how powerful, likewise, the application of the science of success can be when it's turned into the technology of success in your life. And I hope that anchors it solidly. It can radically transform your life the way technology has radically transformed the world. Okay, now we can all use simple tech without really understanding the science, right? I mean, anybody with no education, illiterate, no mental facilities at all or minimal, can learn how to use a screwdriver once they're shown how to use a screwdriver, right? The tech is a screwdriver. You use it, you can drive a screw. It's very simple. Anybody can do it, right? Even I can do it. Even that monkey could do it, okay? And yes, you can use the tech that anybody else has invented, and there's lots of people out there selling online the technology of success, okay? There's lots of them selling online, using the technology of success. They have used it personally to produce success in their life, and they're willing to show you the technology to produce that success. And later on in this presentation, I'm going to be showing you technology of success. But using the technology without understanding the science is only imitation. It's not creativity, okay? And you can use a screw driver to drive a screw without understanding the science, of a screw, right? Screw theory, which is fairly complex. Let me do this for you, okay? The screw was invented in 400 BC by a guy by the name of Archytas of Tarentum. And Archytas was a contemporary of Plato, okay? And Plato, in case you don't know it, is responsible for exactly how you think about the nature of reality, whether you're aware of that fact or not. Plato is responsible for your entire conception of reality. How you're thinking right now is because of the way Plato built his philosophies, okay? Anyway, Archytas invented the screw way back then at the same time. In screw theory, I'm going to read you something from the introduction to a book called The Basics of Screw Theory, just to give you an idea, because you think it's simple. A screw is simple, right? Screw theory is a powerful mathematical tool for the analysis of spatial mechanisms. A screw consists of two three-dimensional vectors. A screw can be used to denote the position and orientation of a spatial vector, the linear velocity and angular velocity of a rigid body, or a force and a couple respectively. Therefore, the concept of a screw is convenient in kinematics and dynamics, while the transformation between the screw-based method and vector and matrix methods is straightforward. When applied in mechanism analysis, screw theory has its advantages of clear geometrical concepts, explicit physical meaning, simple expression, and convenient algebraic calculation. It is worth noting that the preliminary requirements for screw theory are only linear algebra and basic dynamics in undergraduate level. Thus, screw theory has been widely applied, and researchers have used screw theory to make great contributions in many frontier problems in mechanism theory, right? Simple stuff, right? Okay, maybe you don't want to hear about that stuff, but the folks who are designing the robots to replace your job, and maybe even you, do care about that stuff. Okay. Maybe you do need a degree in mechanical engineering to understand the principle of a screw, right? That a rotating helix causes linear motion and whatever possible application. And even if the most uneducated and illiterate and fairly unintelligent person can use a screwdriver to drive a screw, when shown how to do it, it is still merely imitation, and it is also limitation. And only that person who understands screw theory that I read to you, and I don't understand it, can use the knowledge to design and build a perfect robot, okay? This particular book that you see in front of you right now costs $112. It is not an easy read. I just read you the first introductory couple of paragraphs from that book, and even that much is difficult, okay? Book costs $112. It's not an easy read. Education costs time, money, and attention, right? Okay, so pay attention to the science because it's going to be really important when you get to the technology, please. Okay, so let's get to it. The science of success. Enough prelude, okay? I'm going to provide you the knowledge so that you can make the application of the technology which we're going to talk about near the end of this presentation to create whatever you conceive of success being. And I'm not going to define it for you, okay? Your definition of success is going to be entirely different than mine, right? You get to define what success is to you, but this precise methodology that I'm going to show you will work for whatever definition of success you have in mind, okay? Now, as I have been asserting for more than 3 decades now, consciousness is the ground of all being, all things, all existent things. The entire universe arises out of consciousness, okay? This universal consciousness is the source of all being, and that's a primary precept that we need to grasp, okay? Your consciousness is not just you being aware of you and your world around you. Your consciousness is actually what brings your world into being, into existence. Your consciousness brings your world into existence. So in order to talk about the science of success, I need to touch briefly on the subject of consciousness. And my other work, books and courses and whatnot, talks more deeply about it. And if you're interested, you can explore it more deeply in another time. The primary precept is that there exists a universal consciousness that creates, sustains, and enlivens the entire cosmos and everything in it, including you, okay? Consciousness is what makes everything manifest. It is the source of all things. All things. It is prime creator. And universal consciousness is subsumed within its creation. It is omnipresent within its creation, which means it exists within you. And that's a critical understanding. Universal consciousness resides in you, right? And it individuates to become your consciousness, okay? Universal consciousness, the grand creative force behind the whole entire cosmos, individuates to become your consciousness and mine, of course, as well, okay? All right, so it means that what that means is that your consciousness contains, at least latently, okay, at least latently, the exact same power, creative power that brought universe into being, okay? And that continues to sustain and enliven the universe. That same power resides directly within you because universal consciousness individuated to become your consciousness, right? So the power of creativity resides in you. It's the same in kind and quality, perhaps not quantity. It's the only difference. Right? Now you are enthralled with, generally speaking, all of us humans are enthralled with and spend the majority of our time and the focus of our attention on the activities of our conscious mind, okay? We are truly fully in love with our minds and it's truly astounding abilities, but that's only a small percentage of who we are in our entirety, okay? The abilities of our conscious mind are enhanced tremendously by its connection to your supraconscious mind and to universal consciousness, which is the source of all creativity. On the other hand, the abilities of your conscious mind are constrained or limited by, right, your subconscious mind, the programs existing in your subconscious mind, right? And by the collective unconscious of humanity, which contains the paradigms and grand narratives which we all live within, generally speaking, completely unconsciously, unaware of, blah, 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 the general consensus reality picture. We walk around taking it for granted. We never give it a second thought. We just think that that's the nature of reality. These all contain the archetypes of human culture coming back from thousands of years, the paradigms we live within, the narrative that we tell ourselves about the nature of reality, all contained within the collective unconscious. And that constrains our personal ability to be creative. In addition to the major constraint, which is the personal programs we have running. And we'll get more into those personal programs in a little wee bit, okay? So your conscious mind, unlike your subconscious mind, is choice enabled. And this is the great gift of the conscious mind. It can make decisions, it can make choices. And it is this ability to make choices in which your true power resides, because you can choose to access intentionally your subconscious mind. You can choose intentionally to access your superconscious mind. You can choose to access your connection to universal consciousness. These are all choice points, right? That power to choose is incredibly strong and powerful, okay? Now, so this slide is kind of deceiving because it shows that we have the conscious mind in the middle, and above the conscious mind is the superconscious mind, and above that is your connection to universal consciousness. And below the conscious mind is the subconscious mind, which contains your personal programs, and below that is the collective unconscious, which is the foundation of all of us, right? That's a little deceiving because truly these things are all present simultaneously in the same space. Okay, they're interwoven. They're not layered like this, one above the other or one below the other. They're all interwoven, like as if raindrops were falling on a pond, and all of those little patterns that are spreading out from those raindrops are all interfering with each other and interlocking. So all of these layers of ourselves are not separate and one above and below each other. They're all interfering and interlocking and interacting with each other in every moment of our lives, okay? So that's really, really critical to understand. So the consciousness that we have is multidimensional, right? It's not limited to our conscious mind where we spend the majority of our time. And until we are able to conceive of the fact that there are a multiplicity of layers to our consciousness and are willing to explore those other layers of self, of consciousness, we are limited by the limitations of the conscious mind. And we don't have access to the superconscious mind, and we don't have access to our subconscious mind. So we don't know what programs are driving us, and we don't know what programs are limiting our ability to be creative. So until we are prepared to accept the fact that we are a multidimensional, interwoven energy, collection of energy fields, we cannot move forward into our full creativity. Okay, so let's just make that point and move on. And let's start talking specifically about your mind and its attributes and aspects. And in order to do that properly, I love to use this particular analogy. And it's really a simple analogy. And please don't take it to mean that it's directly literal. It is not. It's just an analogy. Right? So let's do this. This photo of this MacBook Air, my MacBook Air there, conceive of it as being your brain. Okay? And the operating system, Mac OS 10, in this case, the version called Mountain Lion, is your mind. And the programs or apps you have installed are the programs or apps you have installed. Okay, so now when I go to create this presentation for you, if I took my computer off the assembly line and opened it up, what could I do with it? What could it produce? Well, absolutely fucking nothing. That's what it can produce. Nothing. It comes off the assembly line. It's not capable of doing anything. It's the same as your brain. It can't do anything, right? Okay, so now we install an operating system in the computer, in this case, Mountain Lion or Mac OS 10, and we've installed the mind, okay, into the brain. Okay, mind and brain are not the same thing. We've installed the mind into the hardware of the brain. Okay, now it can do a few things, but it still can't produce this presentation or anything else relatively important in the real world. Your mind actually can't produce very much at all, right? It just simply sits there and spins its wheels like an operating system does until it discovers a program. And then that program produces the results. Okay, so Liz Coleman is trying to get into the room and I have no control over my mouse. Too bad, Liz, I'm sorry, you'll have to live with the recording, you're late. Anyway, the programs that we have that produce the results we have in life are things that we accumulate over time. Some come pre-installed, we're born with them, right? I mean, we have simple programs that we're born with. We know how to suckle on our mother's breast. We know how to breathe, simple programs that produce results, okay? But over time and very, very quickly, we get installed with other programs, right? Before birth even, but let's just say it from the time of birth. I mean, many of them are installed while you're still in utero, but let's just talk about from the time of birth. You are the recipient of many programs, most of them installed in you without your permission. Now, many of them are installed with, good intent, right? I mean, you're taught certain things about how to deal with the world by your parents, by your teachers, and by society at large, right? And you've accepted many of these programs without question, and they've basically gone about the job of teaching you how to go about living your life. And you lived your life according to these programs, and these programs produce the results you have in your life. And you really never really pay any attention to them or examine them for any validity or usefulness, right? Now, like the programs on my computer, every once in a while they need to be updated, and every once in a while they need to be thrown into the trash can, right? And replaced with newer, bigger, better programs, okay? And every once in a while they get infected with viruses or malware or whatever you want to call it, and they need to be cleaned up, okay? That's the simple analogy, okay? And you can think of your brain and your mind and the programs that govern your life as being an extension of that analogy, as a way of thinking about where we're going with this presentation, because we're going to talk about your mind more specifically in a couple of minutes, okay? All right, so to complete the picture here, we have your conscious mind in the middle. Underneath that, we have your subconscious mind, which contains the programs, which produces the results you have in life. Without fail, it produces all the results you have in life, all the programs you have running, not the stuff you do with your conscious mind. You can think whatever you want to think, but it's the programs that produce the results, okay? And underneath that is the collective unconscious of humanity, which contains the paradigms and the grand narrative that we all live within, and basically shapes the reality picture we all have. And above our conscious mind is our superconscious mind, which contains the concepts and ideals that you form for yourself, and above that is universal consciousness, which is the source of your creativity. Okay, so that completes the analogy. And Catherine, I saw you taking a picture of that. You're going to have the recording. You can freeze frame it and screenshot it all you want to. It's all yours. Okay, promise you, it's all yours, including the copyright. All right, so let's talk about your mind for a second and how it works. Right. So we're going to focus basically on two aspects, the first of which is passive, okay? And this is the passive aspect that I want to focus on. Your mind, while you're walking around in the world, actually pays witness to and records everything. It notices everything without you noticing any of it. It notices everything without you noticing that it's noticing, and it records it, okay? The only thing you notice is that which you place your attention on, which is separate, right? The recording function goes on automatically, and there's been lots of experiments, especially in Russia, where they love to do this stuff, where they take a guy and they walk him from his house to the laboratory, and then they go in and they stimulate his brain with electrodes and hypnosis and whatnot. And there he can tell you how many leaves are on a particular tree that he passed on the way to the laboratory. Okay, your mind records everything. Okay, and you pay no attention to any of it except that which you place your attention upon. Okay, so think of it this way. Okay, those great and wonderful NSA computers that record absolutely everything you do in the digital world, all the phone calls you make, all the texts you make, all the questions you ask Siri, all the queries you make on Google, all of that is recorded for all of us by those great NSA supercomputers. Now, of course, they paid little attention to any of that. They don't care what you're talking about on the telephone or on this Zoom presentation, unless we happen to stray into things that maybe affect national security, and then they pay very close attention, okay? It's the same thing with you. You are recording all of this information that you are being bombarded with by your world, right? Not just the physical information that you get through your senses, but the stuff that is subliminal or supraliminal to your conscious awareness, right? All like the magnetic field of the earth, the information being shone out by the sun, the radiation of the sun, everything that you were being bombarded with is being recorded, and you paid little attention. You notice practically nothing of it except that which you pay attention to. And there's a thing called the reticular activating system that lots of people use to talk about this. And that is like, this is how it works. You go out and you buy yourself a brand new shiny red Honda sports car, right? And the next thing you know, you're driving down the road, and my God, there's so many shiny little red Honda sports cars out on the road that you never noticed before. How come everybody bought one on the same day as you, right? Okay, so we all know that to exist, right? All of you get something or you pay attention to something, the next thing you know, you notice it in the world all around you. All of a sudden it's common instead of as rare and before, as it was before you happened to buy one, okay? Or let's say you're on your way from your house to your coffee shop, okay? Driving down the road, and you know, lots of cars are going by, lots of pedestrians, lots of traffic, there's lots of shit going on. You're just driving down the road, going to the coffee shop, and you pay little attention. Nothing that's going on around you is of any importance, so you pay little attention, okay? Unless perhaps one of those cars swerves and causes you to go like, oh, geez, and move out of the way. Then you pay attention to that. Or maybe you're driving down the road and one of the cars going by contains your mother-in-law, so you decide to hang out at the coffee shop a little longer than you would normally hang out, right? Okay, so it is where you place your attention that creates the value of the information that you're receiving. That's the important thing, the point I want to make here, right? It's like all of this information, more information than you can possibly conceive of, that you are constantly exposed to, right, is being recorded in the subconscious aspect of your mind. And only those things which you pay attention to and prioritize are of value to you, okay? So that's how we move into the active aspects of mind, okay? Knowing that we have access to all this incredible amount of information, any information that you could possibly need to create anything you desire to create in your life, you already have access to, because you are being bombarded with all of the information of all of the universe at all times, okay? There is nothing that you are not made available to, right? As far as information goes, it's all there, but only where you place your attention is what you notice and what it becomes of value to you, okay? So your ability, your first active aspect of mind is your ability to interpret or evaluate or prioritize the information, right? It allows you to, you look at something, you decide whether it's good or bad, right? True or false, valuable or not valuable, critical or trivial, supportive or non-supportive. This is interpretation, right? You prioritize, you pay attention to something, you place a priority on it, okay? So we do this in every second without even realizing it. It is active, but we don't really realize it. We're just doing it all the time. We categorize, we discriminate, we pass judgment, we evaluate, we prioritize everything, okay? The point being is that we can learn to take control over that prioritizing. We can learn to start paying attention to the things that are important to us, not the things that are pushed at us, okay? So if we learn how to take conscious control over how we prioritize information, we can file it appropriately. And lots of times, some of this information needs to be filed in the spam folder, right? Just like junked, it's no good, okay? Learning how to prioritize information enables you to be creative, because when you prioritize things and you put them into that first file that is being supportive of the way you're thinking about going about creating things, gives you access to what's important, okay? And as soon as you take conscious control over your ability to prioritize, you've taken the very first step into being a conscious creator, okay? So the second aspect of mind is the one that everybody loves to talk about, your ability to attract, okay? So the law of attraction is what we're going to talk about here for a little bit, just so you can get my take on it. The law of attraction is a combination of two of the four essential forces of what govern the entire universe. There's four forces that govern the whole physical nature of the universe, and they are the small and the large nuclear forces, electromagnetism and gravity, okay? The law of attraction is a combination of electromagnetism and gravity, okay? It is electromagnetism that causes the atoms to adhere to other atoms in order to create molecules. There's electromagnetism that causes molecules to adhere to each other to create matter. It causes matter to adhere to another matter, which means that it creates more mass, which means that it creates gravity, and therefore the law of attraction. So it's electromagnetism and gravity together, those two natural forces which govern, two of the four natural forces which govern all of creation in universe, that are the law that can make up the law of attraction. And it's very important because they together, the energetic braid of thought and emotion, create, through the law of attraction, physical things, okay? So law of attraction is the energetic braid, which is electromagnetism of thought and emotion. As it gains mass, more attracts more. You know, you can see it all happen all the time. The people who create success create more success. The people who create failure create more failure. It's very simple, right? So the point being is we are energetic beings and we broadcast. And we've got this little diagram here, and I'm going to expand it right now so that you can see exactly how this works as far as our emotional content. Okay, so we're going to come back to the thought picture about that aspect of it. So a combination of the thought picture and the emotional content creates the electromagnetic braid, which forms the physical things of your reality. Okay, so here is how your emotional being works. And there's an upward spiral and there's a downward spiral. Okay, this is basic human psychology. It's not complex at all. Okay, some people are caught up in it. You can see where it works in other people's lives, and maybe you can see where it works in your life, right? Okay, these things are the same spiral, they're just separated. Okay, so number 7, contentment, right? And number 8, laziness, if you will, are basically the same thing, right? So you move up from contentment through to hopefulness, optimism, positive, blah, 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 all the way up to joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, and love. And you're at the top of the spiral and the maximum creative power. Or you move down the spiral and you slide all the way down through worry and fear and revenge and jealousy and anger and blah, 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 into grief and depression and powerlessness and victimhood. And you're incapable of creating anything except misery, okay? And that's all you do is create more misery for yourself and your fellow human beings around you, okay? So the point being is that if we are going to be able to be conscious creators, we have to learn how to take control of our emotional states of being, the way we broadcast that emotional energy, look at something like this, recognize where we're at, and make a decision to move intentionally up the spiral to the empowering levels of, say, for example, enthusiasm, desire, passion, gratitude, joy, knowledge, etc. Okay, connection to the infinite, okay, at the top of the spiral, and that's where your maximum creativity lies. Right? This is the critical piece of this presentation. So get this emotional content part down. Again, you'll have access to this recording and you can look at this and figure out where you are on the spiral. We're all at different places in different parts of our day. We are reactionary instead of being intentionally always in a state of gratitude. Something comes along, we get pissed off at our neighbor. All of a sudden we're thinking an angry thought, or something happens in the world. You know, somebody bombs some other country or something. And the next thing you know, you're worrying about World War III or whatever. So, we're reactionary and we allow ourselves to be pushed into an emotional state against our will, perhaps, or against our better judgment, shall we say, by external events and circumstances, because we do not take control of our own emotional states. And when we take control of our emotional states, we become very, very powerful and are enabled to attach that emotional state, that energy wave, to the thought pattern, which we're going to talk about in a minute, the visualization thought pattern, and thus create the energetic, three-dimensional energetic braid that creates physical reality. Okay, it really does. We'll get to that. Okay, so and before we get to that, let's talk about the third aspect. And this is probably why you came here, because you want to learn how to create success. I mean, that's kind of how the thing was sold, right? Even though what I'm going to talk about is how to become the best version of you. And of course, the best version of you can create success at will. So, let's talk about what the causal is instead of the effectual. Best version of you is where you want to be so that you can be creative, okay, and contributory, okay? Your power to create is your greatest faculty, and it comes from prime creator. Critical understanding, number one, okay? Number two, your creative power is the same in kind and quality as that of universal consciousness, number two. Number three, you can conceptualize anything, like literally anything. There is no limit to what you can conceive of, okay? The only limits are your self boxed in imagination, okay? Your creative imagination is your gift from creator, and you are allowed to conceptualize absolutely anything. And in so doing, you can create anything and thereby contribute to yourself, humanity, and to the universe as a whole, okay? So before we move on to the next slide, I want to reaffirm what I've been saying again for decades and decades now, that prosperity, okay, is the abundance of all things held ideal in mind and dear in heart. Now, that's not just a clever turn of phrase, because ideal in mind is the picture, the mental image, right? That mental vibration that, when combined with the dear in heart, the emotional vibration, weaves the vector, the energetic braid that brings physical reality into being, okay? And we'll get to it more completely in a second, okay? And when I talk about success, I don't think of success as being just material success, okay? I don't think of success as having $1 million in the bank, because $1 million in the bank and lying in the hospital bed, breathing your last breath is, pretty much meaningless, except for the fact that you have access to expensive medical care to take care of you while you breathe your last breath, right? Okay, so success is a combination of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual and material well-being, okay? That's my definition of success, okay? If you're missing one of them, you're not really successful, okay? You can be the world's biggest billionaire and you have zero spiritual stuff going on in your life. You're as poor as the street kid on the street who's begging for money to buy crack. That's how poor you are if you have nothing going on in your spiritual life, okay? So if you're sick and dying and you have all that money, doesn't mean shit, okay? So success is a combination of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and material well-being, and I hope you understand that. Okay, so here is the step-by-step process of how conscious, intentional creation takes place, okay? It starts in the spiritual, okay? And it begins with the understanding that all acts of conscious creation arise from your creative imagination, which is a direct personal gift from Prime Creator, okay? It is unlimited. And the process of creation begins with conceptualization, and then moves into idealization. And we're going to separate those a little farther down the road. I just want to give you the process now, okay? So that's the spiritual aspect. The creative imagination, which engenders conceptualization and idealization. And then the mental aspect, we call it the visualization, but really it's just your act of defining the ideal. So you take the etheric ideal that you've said, whatever, you can say my ideal is peace and love. Okay, well, that's fine and dandy, but what does it mean, right? Not much, really, until you define it, right? Okay, So that's the visualization. That's the mental exercise. It's the visualization, the definition of the ideal. Okay. And then the third is attaching that emotional component, okay, to create that break, that energetic break. And that's your desire, your passion, which creates your belief and your confident expectation. Okay. And then, and only then, after all of that, does the physical come into being, into play. All right. So your enactment, the things that you do out in the world, really it's only the proof of your belief, right? You know, if you're doing things that are irrelevant to your ideals, if you're going out, you know, whatever, just running around, you know, popping over to the pub every day without any, you know, thought to the repercussions of spending all day and every day in the pub, and you're not living your life day to day in accordance with your ideals, chances are you're not going to produce any kind of level of satisfaction, fulfillment, and personal success in your life because you're out of sync, right? So your physical is the proof, the way you go about being in the world physically, the things that you do is the proof of your belief and your confident expectation that the results are going to show up. I don't know how to say that in another way. If you're doing the things that support your ideals, it's proof of your belief in yourself and in your ideals, okay? Okay, then what happens after that, of course, is you get to have that expressed out into the world, you get to enjoy it and you get to celebrate it, and it produces a gratitude loop, and we'll come back to that as well in a second, okay? So here we are, the fundamentals. Consciousness is the ground of all being, the physical arises out of the metaphysical, all matter is composed out of interwoven patterns of energy, all of it, okay? The table I'm sitting in front of here, the chair I'm talking on, the computer, all of it is interwoven patterns of energy. And we'll get to that in a moment so you understand it. And you are an energetic being and you emit energy. That's what you do. You broadcast energy constantly. Your emotional, mental, spiritual states of being are your energetic output, and your energetic output is entangled with the energetic patterns, existing energetic patterns of universe, okay? So the energy you emit is a product of your consciousness, and the material world you experience is a result of your state of consciousness. That's how creation works, okay? All right. Time for the practical. We went through the science fairly quickly because I knew you would be bored with a lot of it, okay? And you came here to say, okay, how the hell do I create success? Okay. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go back over the science and say, here's the piece of the science that you need to apply. So we're going to start that process right now. And then you're going to get into the pen and paper kind of application that you'll need to do in a second, okay? So to reaffirm again and remind you again, so that when you weave together the mental image, the thought form with the emotional intensity, you create the energetic mold, right? The pattern, okay? That will effectuate, underline, will effectuate as a tangible reality when you act with intentionality, focus, and consistency, okay? Consistency being a big word here, right? You can act on intentionally and on focus for 1 hour a day, and then 23 hours a day, you're off track and it doesn't work. You have to be consistent, okay? Okay, again, the reminder, your conscious mind, superconscious mind, connection to universal consciousness. This is where the elevation of your creative power takes place. The limitations to your creative power take place in your subconscious mind with the programs you have running, and in the collective unconscious, which contains the paradigms that you exist within, the story that we all exist within, right, about what reality is made out of, okay? So step number one is the conceptualization and what is possible, okay? So it is constrained by your personal imagination, the societal narrative, and the collective unconscious. All right, can you conceive of yourself as being a multimillionaire? Let's talk about material success. Can you conceive of yourself as being a multimillionaire? And maybe you say yes, and maybe you say no. I don't want to hear your answer. It's private, it's up to you. But let me tell you this, if you've ever once in your life bought a lottery ticket, the answer is yes. You can conceive of yourself, because that even that little tiny glimmer of hope is a conception, is the conceiving of the fact that, oh, well, you know, I could win that $50 million lottery ticket, right? Okay. So you can conceive of anything. You know what I can conceive of? I can conceive of the fact that it is possible without changing anything in the world, without, changing a lot of things in the world. It is possible for every human being on this planet to be a multimillionaire. There's no reason why not. There's enough wealth to go around, right? I mean, if you just take apart the trillions of debt that the government invented last week, you could turn around and give a little bit to everybody and turn them into a multimillionaire, right? With the same amount of money. No big deal. Okay? I can conceive of the fact that you are a multimillionaire, so you should be able to too. I could conceive of the fact that human beings could be an interplanetary species tomorrow. Forget about rockets and the speed of light and all that shit. We have stargates and wormholes, and we can just zap from here to Andromeda Galaxy. Okay, I can conceive of that. And maybe every other science fiction writer on the planet can also conceive of that, but it's a big conceptualization, right? What else can I conceive of? I can conceive of the fact that I could levitate. Why not? Right? I haven't ever done it to my knowledge, except in my sleep. When I'm dreaming, I can fly. Okay, right? But these are things I can conceive of. And the point being is that you conceive of anything. Your conceptualizations are not limited. There is no limit to what you can conceive, except that which, the definitions, the limitations you put on your own imagination. Well, I can't imagine that. No, I can't. No, heavens, no, I can't imagine that, right? No, that's not possible. Don't be silly. That's not even remotely possible. Okay? Self-imposed limitations of your own personal imagination. And then, of course, the societal narrative. Every time somebody goes out there and wants to do something really important and meaningful and big, that's going to impact on society, 4 billion naysayers get up and scream, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. That's never been done before, right? The societal narrative, like everybody's screaming about it. No, you can't do that. What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. You can't do that. And for God's sakes, why would you want to do that? You should spend your time and energy doing this instead. That's a better priority, right? Don't build a rocket ship to go to Mars. For God's sakes, go plant a fucking million trees in the desert instead. I mean, that's a better use of your time and money. You hear it all the time, right? The societal narrative, limiting. Why not do both and more, right? Why does it have to be one or the other? Okay, the societal narrative limits your ability to conceptualize. And then, of course, there's a collective unconscious, which, there's probably very little we can do about there. But if you understand, if you want to take the time to study Jungian psychology, you can get into the collective unconscious and, excuse me, start examining how it applies to you personally, and maybe have some ability, wiggle room in there, okay? The second step is to take those concepts, grand concepts, very ethereal concepts. Everybody on planet Earth is a multimillionaire. And then break it down into an idealization. What is optimal for you? What is optimal for me, right? Okay, forget about all this nonsensical, humans flying to they're traveling through stargates to Andromeda or other galaxies or whatever. I mean, who cares about that shit? What's optimal for me? What's optimal for me is to be able to jump on a plane and go visit my friend in London. That's optimal for me, okay? So that's what I can, get my head wrapped around and consider being real. So that's the idealization, is being able to, okay, maybe, next year they're going to come out with a supersonic transport, so it's not going to take me 6 hours to fly to London. I can do it in 2 hours. Yay, even better. Far out, okay? Okay, so I'm making fun of it, but the ideal is, what's ideal? You have the grand concept, and you take it, the concepts that you've created, and you break it down into what is ideal for me. And again, these are determined by your personal imagination, whatever inspiration you have, existing examples that are out in the world, because chances are you are forming your opinions about what ideals are by existing examples on the world, right? You don't want to stray too far from the common narrative. And then there's the archetypal, which is in the collective unconscious, right? It's like, what is it, the hero's journey that I'm on, or, am I going to be like this or that or whatever, based on the psychology of it, okay? Okay, so here's the point. Creating your ideals is applied spirituality, because it's a spiritual act, okay? Both conceptualization and idealization are spiritual acts. They come from your soul, not your mind, not your heart. They come from your soul, okay? That's where they arise and that's where their power is, because your soul comes from Prime Creator, okay? And that's the source of your creativity, okay? So step 3 is the visualization. And please, for those people out there who have this thing where they say, I can't visualize. This is not about that, okay? If I could say to you, I want you to write down the perfect picture, okay, of what that ideal is. Okay, your ideal is, I want to have this business and it's going to look like this and it's going to do this. And there's my corner office where I'm going to have this red coffee chair and this oak desk and blah, blah, blah. And so I get you to write it down. Okay, draw me the picture of what this is in words. Okay, that's a visualization. Okay, and what else is the visualization? What does it feel like to be sitting in that chair in that office, doing that business as a success? What does it feel like? That's the visualization, that feeling as well, okay? So your visualizations are inhibited by your willingness to believe that visualization is limited to creating pictures in your mind, by your previous experiences, by your attachments that they already exist, and by the degree of your reliance upon sensory input. And so many of us are so completely reliant upon sensory input that we ignore all the other sources of information that we have. Our gut instincts, our intuition, our subconscious mind, our superconscious mind, inspiration from divinity, the massive signals that we're receiving from our culture and from our planet and from the solar system at all times. All of this is ignored because we only see the evidence of our senses, what we can see, what we can taste, what we can hear, what we can smell, what we can touch. That's the only thing we consider to be real. And as a consequence, our perceptual abilities are so narrow that we can't fucking see anything, okay? Literally, what we can see with our eyes, right? What we can see with our eyes is what? 1% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, right? All of that radiation that exists around us at all times, we cannot see it, and yet it is bombarding us as the same way as the sunlight that we can see reflecting off the objects around me is bombarding us. It's all there and we can't perceive it, right? So if we rely only on our sensory input, the things that we can touch, right? The things that we taste, good excuse for a drink of water. The things that we smell, things that we hear, beautiful music, all of that. If that's all we rely upon, we're ignoring everything else that's available to us, okay? And as a consequence, our ability to visualize our ideals, to define them, to make them real in our mind is limited, defined by those, inhibited by those things. Nevertheless, you can envision any ideals you hold, okay? Feel free. Okay, next step, belief, okay? I like to call belief confident expectation, okay? That's what I call it. I think it's a better word than belief, because belief has, it comes with baggage, right? It's like, okay, I have a belief. Maybe that's a religious belief. I have a belief about, maybe it's politics. I have a belief. It comes with baggage. Confident expectation, on the other hand, is pretty cool, right? Okay, instead of believing in my goals, I have the confident expectation that they are coming into being. They're real, right? All right, so I prefer confident expectation. Okay, anyway, your beliefs are constrained by your past experiences, the societal narrative, and the depth of your desire, okay? So if you don't really desire something, chances are you don't really believe it either. So it's, you got to really desire it. You got to attach that desire, okay? Okay, and you can choose what you want to believe. You don't have to believe anything that anybody tells you you have to believe. You can choose. If I choose to believe that you can all be multimillionaires tomorrow, that's my choice, right? And I do. I choose to believe that you can all be multimillionaires tomorrow, okay? I choose to believe that. It's up to you to choose it for yourself if you want to. I don't care. It's your life. Maybe you don't even want to be a multimillionaire. Who cares, right? I mean, it's not everything, right? I mean, maybe all you need is like, $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 a month to cover the basics, right? Who needs multi-millions? Just constant, steady cash flow, right? That's all you really need. Okay. Anyway, having fun with you. Okay. Confident expectation is step 4. You've got to build the belief. Okay. All right. Step number 5 is that We'll come back to it, constructing that energetic mold. And I call this the process of envisioneering your reality, okay? It is the combination of the clarity and the consistency of that visualization, the definition of your ideal, combined with the intensity of your emotional content, that desire, that belief, okay? That is your power to effectuate. Thought plus desire produces results. Boom, end of story, okay? That's it. Okay, now I want you to take a real close look at this wonderful little diagram that I've put here for you, okay? Okay, so the yellow line, okay, you see the yellow line, there's a waveform that goes up and down, okay? Imagine it going up and down, okay? That's your mental energy. That's the thought picture, the visualization, okay? The little purple line that goes sideways, that's the wave pattern, the energy form, right? That is your emotional content, okay? Both of them are pretty much two-dimensional, up and down, back and forth, right? Okay, together, however, if you follow the light blue or teal colored line, whatever that is, it's a spiral. It connects all the wave points, right? The top of each wave, right? And forms a spiral, unfolding spiral, creates a vortex of energy, okay? Which forms physical things, okay? And now this is not just me bullshitting you with some sort of woo-woo philosophy. This is how atoms come into being. And I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm going to read to you a scientific paper that tells you this is exactly how physical reality comes into being, okay? This physical reality, electromagnetism forms this picture, makes it happen, okay? So hold that thought, okay? Matter, good old Albert again, we come back to him. Matter is energy tied into tight little knots, held together by coherence and resonance, okay? So he's famous, we all understand, E equals MC squared, boom, we can build atomic bombs, blah, 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 okay? But that formula, the exact same formula, is also matter equals energy divided by the speed of light squared, okay? So matter is energy tied into tight little knots held together by coherence, by resonance. Now think about that. Resonance holds matter together. And resonance is what you need to use to create matter, success, results, effects in your life, okay? All right. Only after those steps do you go about doing the doing, because otherwise you're going to be rushing around making a whole bunch of commotion, wondering why you're putting out so much energy and working so hard to do a whole bunch of stuff, and the results you get in life are only this big. Like I'm doing all the same shit that everybody else is doing, and they're getting all these big results, and all I get is this. What the fuck is going on here? All right? It's because you're running around doing the doing without understanding all of the other stuff that you need to do behind it, right? The conceptualization, the idealization, the visualization, right? The braiding together of the mental picture with the energetic output in order to create the vortex that pulls stuff together, that enacts the law of attraction, that brings stuff into your life, money, people, resources, everything that you need to create the success that you want to have in your life is all done when you understand and use that other stuff consciously. Doing the doingness, running around like crazy, doing stuff is not going to produce much in the way of results unless you put it all into a stack layer of harmonics like music in order to produce the results you want to have with less effort. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay. All right. So this enactment, this intentional conscious enactment in harmony with, right, in sync with all of these other things, specifically your ideals, most importantly, is enabled by focus and intentional activity. In other words, you plan your work and you work your plan, like the old guys always say, right? The simple old guys always said, plan your work and work your plan. Well, this is why, right? It's frustrated, however, by that chaotic or random activity, or the continuous distraction, that squirrel or shiny object syndrome, right? Where today I get up and I've got this beautiful, wonderful plan. I joined this little company or whatever, and I'm going to go out and I'm rah, 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 rah. And then tomorrow my best friend tells me that, oh, that's all bullshit. but I've got this other better opportunity for me. So I run over there and I do that instead for 2 weeks. And then I go over here and I do this. Or then I go, oh, well, to hell with it. I'm going on vacation to the Caribbean, blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, nothing changes in your life. Well, guess what? Why is that? Because you haven't really focused on doing anything intentionally, consciously, right? You haven't gone through the process of conscious creation, and you have allowed yourself to be continuously distracted by one shiny object or another, like a dog chasing a squirrel, and then the next squirrel, and then the next squirrel, or the bird that runs down and lands in front of it and teases the dog. You know what I mean? Okay. To recapitulate this, to reaffirm this, to bring it back into your consciousness, this is how the system works, okay? And then we're going to get into real practical stuff that you can do, okay? Your conscious, and then Q&A really quickly. Your consciousness and creative power come from universal consciousness, prime creator. Boom, end of story, okay? You've got to understand that. Universal consciousness creates, sustains, and enlivens the entire universe. Your consciousness and your creative power is an individuation of universal consciousness, and your creative power is therefore a divine aspect of you, okay? Step 1 and step 2, conceptualization, idealization, are spiritual acts of creation, okay? And that's where all acts of creation must begin, is in the spiritual. You must begin with the conceptualization, you must turn it into an idealization, and then and only then you get engaged with your mind and turn it into a visualization or a picture of one kind or another, whether it's written down or focused in your mind as a visual, whatever. Only then. And then you use your emotional self to create that confident expectation, that desire, that belief, and attach it to that mental picture in order to create step 5, that energetic mold that makes things manifest by using the law of attraction in its true metaphysical and physical application, okay? Instead of this woo-woo shit that they talk about all the time. Go sit in the car dealership in the seat of the Mercedes and pretend you're driving that car down the freeway. Feel the feeling, and the genie will automatically grant you access to that Mercedes. Bullshit. It's a fairy tale. Stop believing in it, okay? All right. So then you go out and you do the things that you think you need to do. You have a plan, you execute the plan. That's the physical thing. And then you get to enjoy the result. And the result reinforces the belief. And so it provides a feedback loop and reinforces so you can conceive even bigger things, right? So first I build a little toy rocket in my backyard. Okay, first I build a little toy rocket in my backyard. I draw pictures of little toy rockets in my comic books, blah, 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 blah. And then I build a bigger one, and then I build a bigger one. And the next thing you know, I'm building a rocket to take people to Mars. Okay, so the success of the first one provides a feedback loop. It enables me to conceptualize a bigger picture. We go through the process again. It provides a feedback loop to a bigger conceptualization. That's why people who create success create more success, because they're continuously creating a positive feedback loop. Okay, and so can you, by taking control of those emotional states, that spiral I showed you later, right? That's where you start with that, okay? All right, here's the essential truth of creation. We're gonna get to, pen and paper stuff in a minute, okay? Your causal self, your spiritual oversoul, causal self arises out of the infinite. And your soul is gifted with creative imagination. Your creativity is the same in kind and quality of that of the creative source of all that is, all, right? Whatever you want to call it. I don't care if you call it God. I don't call it, you care universal consciousness or Brahma or Allah or whatever. I don't care. It makes no sense. No, I don't care one way or the other, what name you apply to it, right? Prime creator is the source of you and all that you create. You're the channel for that energy to come out into the world. That's why you exist, okay? So your ability to conceptualize is unlimited, and what you believe is a matter of choice. And as the great Napoleon Hill reminds us, whatever, not this, not that, not this basket of things, not what's contained within the, the possibilities my neighbors think of, or my culture says is possible, or anything, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, right? Okay, so We'll come back to that. I'm going to keep hammering that home. There is a geometry to creation. Okay, it happens. Energy always forms patterns. So there is a geometry. It's the science behind the science. Okay, and it's all about vibration, frequency, and resonance. I told you we come back to resonance, and we're going to get into it in a second. So music, math, art, physics, and all science, including the science of success, is best understood through the use of looking at vibration, frequency, and resonance. And when you are resonant with source energy, your personal power is amplified and you can create anything you can conceptualize. Okay, again, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Okay, all right. When you are resonant with source energy, your personal power is amplified. Okay, so I want to tell you something about resonance. I told you I was going to read you something about a scientific paper about resonance. Okay, where did I have that? Here we go. Okay, this is this just so you know that, like, I'm not making up this thing about resonance creating physical reality, and your resonance with Prime Creator enabling you to create real shit in the world. Okay, real stuff. Make it up in your mind, bring it out into the world, manifest it, make it effectual. Okay, boom. Scientific paper I happened to read last week. Quantum theory revealed that the structure of atoms, no less than the structure of symphonies, is intimately tied to resonance. Electrons bound to atoms are a little like sound waves trapped inside flutes. Okay? As for the atomic nuclei, further advances in the 1930s showed that many kinds of atomic nuclei only exist in the universe today because of resonance. Right? Resonant transitions are critical to the nuclear fusion reactions that transmute one type of atomic nucleus into another. The most celebrated of these nuclear resonances enables the fusion of three helium nuclei into one carbon nucleus. Without this, stars would not be capable of producing carbon or heavier elements, and life as we know it would not be possible. No resonance, no life, no matter, no universe, no nothing. Resonance makes it all happen. And then it goes on to say, but the roots of resonance in fundamental physics lie deeper. In the late 1920s, physicists began to develop a powerful mathematical framework known as quantum field theory that remains the language of particle physics to this day. In quantum field theory, the universe's true elementary entities are fields that fill all space. Particles are localized resonant excitations in these fields, vibrating like springs in an infinite mattress. The frequencies at which quantum fields prefer to vibrate stem from fundamental constraints whose origins remain obscure. Of course, they remain obscure to scientists because they don't want to say they come from God, right? Or Prime Creator. Okay, these frequencies in turn determine the masses of the corresponding particles. Blast the vacuum of empty space hard enough at the right frequency, and out will pop a bunch of particles. Let me repeat that for a second so you really get this. Blast the vacuum, the void, the nothingness, the vacuum of empty space hard enough at the right frequency, and out will pop a bunch of particles. Now, what are particles? Particles are the stuff of the universe. Okay, where does the frequency come from? Consciousness. Okay, your consciousness has the same power to create as universal consciousness. Blast the vacuum of empty space hard enough with the right frequency, right? Creating resonance, and out will pop particles. This is a scientific paper. I'm not talking off the top of my head. This I'm quoting. I copied and pasted it. So, continuing on from the same article, we have all heard how a trained singer, for instance, can shatter a glass, right? With a certain resonant frequency. Now, suppose the singer starts with a low note and continuously glides up in pitch. And as the singer sweeps past the frequency at which the wine glass resonates, the sound momentarily grows much louder. This enhancement arises because the sound waves arrive at the glass in sync with the vibrations that are already present. The singer is not actually singing louder, but the sound is louder because of the resonance. All atomic structures are held together by resonance and can be shattered by a particle beam to produce discrete particles, which are also held together by resonance. For example, protons within the nucleus of atoms have resonance, and the quarks they are made out of also have resonance. Okay, so that's enough of that. In this case, my little analogy is your job is not to be the singer, okay? That is the job of the universe. It is continuously singing the music of the universe, okay? Your job is to be the wine glass that resonates and amplifies the song of the universe by being resonant in order to create. Your job is simply to be resonant, okay? All right, so your mind is both a receiver and a transmitter, okay? When the frequencies of your personal vibratory output are resonant with the existing frequencies of the universe, then the result is an amplification of your creative power. So the question then becomes, how do you attune yourself to the universe? How do you become resonant? And the answer is right in front of your face right now. Number one, train yourself to exist in a state of gratitude. Okay. And how do you do that? I mean, it's taken me years, but nevertheless, I do. I started off by saying my little morning prayer of gratitude. I went to bed at night saying my little prayer of gratitude for all the blessings that are about to come into my life. And then I started going about the world, and I started walking around, doing walking meditations, teaching myself to say, every breath I take is an expression of my gratitude to Mother Earth, to Father Sun, to the cosmos at large, and to Prime Creator for the great gift of life and the ability to revere, to relish, and to contribute. That's me personally. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. Okay. Every step I take on the planet is an expression of my gratitude. Okay? I taught myself to say that to myself, like an affirmation, time after time after time after time. And now when I walk down the street and I stop thinking about other shit and I pay attention to what's going on beyond in the subconscious mind, there's that little affirmation. Every step I take is an expression of my gratitude to Mother Earth, to Father Sun, blah, blah, blah. It's happening. Every breath I take, it's there. It's in the background. It's constant noise, okay? Better than the other noise, the shit that's on TV, the ad jingles we grew up with. You know, remember, what's one I can think of? You'll wonder where the yellow went when you brush your teeth with Pepsodent. Right, there we go. In the background, there, right? Present. And we all have all that crap back there, right? All of it. So why not add to that something of value, something that makes a difference? Teach yourself to be in a state of gratitude. When we're standing in line, I was talking, a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine here, who lives here in Playa del Carmen with me, had to fly back to California because she wanted to like divest herself of the last of her attachments, belongings and attachments in California to get the hell out of Dodge before it fell apart completely, and come back here to Playa. So she called me from the airport, right? First of all, it took 2.5 hours to get to the airport because there's construction on the highway. It's normally like a 45-minute trip from here to Cancun airport. It took her 2.5 hours to get to the airport. Then she had to stand in line for another 45 minutes of security. So leaving 3.5 hours in advance of her flight, she barely made her flight, right? So she's calling to complain about the blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, you know what, instead, that whole 3.5 hours that you were bitching and complaining about how terrible things were, could have been really productive time. You could have been telling yourself how grateful you are for all the wonderful things you have in your life, including the ability to fly to California to sort your life out. You could have been reaffirming all of that stuff. And you would have arrived at the airport all calm, collected, nice and dancing through the airport in a state of grace because you were in a state of gratitude, right? Instead of bitching and complaining about the whole thing. Now, we all do that all the time, don't we? We go to bank and or the grocery store, God forbid, there's somebody in the grocery store, a little old lady who's going to pay by check, right? Instead of by debit card. So instead of swipe, boom, done, out, she's got to dig in her purse, pull out her checkbook, blah, 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 blah. What was that again, my dear? How much was that? Oh shit, I marked it wrong. Tear it out, but not write another. And we're standing there going like, for fuck's sakes, can't you just get on with it, right? We're doing that to ourselves, right? Instead of saying, isn't this wonderful? I have this a bit of extra time to practice my affirmations about how wonderful I am, about how wonderful the world is, right? how grateful I am for the opportunity to stand in line at the grocery store to buy food, put on my table, which may not be available tomorrow. Have fun. Anyway, teach yourself to exist in a state of gratitude, and you will, guess what? Create resonance with the universe, with Prime Creator, okay? Teach yourself to daily access your superconscious mind. And how do you do that? You go and you look at your ideals, right? You sit down, you get still, you focus on your ideals, and you go, like, this is what's really important to me, right? This is what calls out to me. This is what my soul wants. What does my soul want to do? What's going to be fulfilling, right? What am I going to be satisfied with? Okay, I'm lying on my deathbed, and the greatest thing that ever I did in my life was this. I can guarantee you it wasn't to buy that shiny red Mercedes, right? I can guarantee you you're not going to say that, right? The greatest thing I ever did. It's going to be that one great ideal that you focused on for however many years and managed to make it manifest in the world. And you lived your life according to that standard. That's what's going to be important, right? When my father was dying, I said to him, what's the most important thing you've ever done in your life? And he said, I loved your mother. Without question, without a pause. Okay, that was his ideal. That was his standard. That was the focus of his life. He raised 9 kids through hard times and good times, right? His commitment was irrevocable. And what was it? It was his love for my mother, right? Okay, so when you live your life according to your ideals, there's no question about you not being resonant with the universe because you're doing your soul's work, right? You're doing what calls out to you, okay? So now the next step is to connect with universal consciousness. And you can do that how you want. You can go to church, you can do Gregorian chants, you can do what, you can meditate with an Indian guru, you can go like me and do the sound healing sessions, ceremonies on the beach with my Mayan shaman. Whatever appeals to you. It doesn't make any difference, but find some way for you to connect with universal consciousness. Get down on your knees and pray. I don't care, whatever it is, right?
Les, what happened? Did we lose you? Les?
I don't think we lost him, did we?
I think we're all right. I think he might have lost his connection. So let's wait to see if he comes back. This is Russ, by the way.
Yeah, I'm lost too.
Let's all be grateful. I know Leslie, I'm going to put that to the test. If he comes back, I'm going to ask him if he's grateful that we lost the connection.
No, we're the gratefuls. We're grateful. He's coming.
Yes, of course we are. But I that little test that he has about, like things about being impatient going to the airport. He just lost his connection right at the peak of a really important piece that he was saying.
Yeah, I know. Funny. Okay, come on, Leslie. Where you gone?
I wonder if you guys would be up for it. If we'd like to open up a discussion now until Leslie comes back about what we've been talking about, what your thoughts are. I don't think this is still recording, and I don't want to bogart anything here, but I'd love to discuss what Leslie's talking about. Here he comes.
All right, I'm
here he
back.
comes.
I'm back.
I was just about ready to bogart your session here, so I'm glad you're back. And I want you to know that I'm grateful that you lost your connection.
Thank you. You're so cute.
We're all
Well,
grateful, Ledley. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I got to stop talking. You're happy about that, right? All right, thank you, Russ. I mean, I appreciate it. Anyway, so can you see my screen again? Yes? Yeah, okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so let me
Yes,
do this.
we can.
Play
we
again.
can.
We'll come back to this. We're just about at the end, guys, so hang in there for a second, okay? Okay, so how do you, what else do you have to do to create resonance? You define your ideals and then you speak the truth, okay? You just go out into the world and speak your truth. Stop talking garbage, stop talking bullshit, stop talking what you expect other people to say, stop talking small about yourself and your world, okay? Speak your truth. Say, this is who I am, right? This is what I'm in the process of creating. This is what I'm doing. Do you want to join with me or not? If they don't, too bad. If they do, wonderful. Like Russ has this great new program he started for Veda. He said to me, how would you like to play? And I said, I'm in. Like, it's wonderful. What can I do to help create more wealth, prosperity, and abundance in the world, right? I'm in. Sure, count on me. I can't do like, like everybody else is going to do 2 masterminds a week, but I can contribute in a big way. So I'm there for Russ, right? Because I know what he wants to contribute, okay? So define your ideals, speak your truth, tell the world what you're doing, right? That resonance in thought, emotion, word, and deed. Action creates resonance, and resonance is what enacts the law of attraction. Okay, so again, back to Napoleon Hill one more time. The minded man, woman, or any other conscious entity can conceive and believe it can achieve. Okay, all right. Now we come to the important stuff. Okay, affirmations. Okay, I am. Okay. Okay, it's a common English translation of the Hebrew phrase, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce because I have no idea, but it's also translated as I am who I am, I will become what I choose to become, I am what I am, I will be what I will be, I create whatever I create, and I am the existing one. That's straight from Wikipedia. I made up none of that, right? I am that I am, okay? Bing, 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 bing. Indian guru once said, this fundamental truth in the Bible, the one fundamental truth you need to get from the Bible is I am that I am. End of story. The other thing he said you have to learn how to do is love your neighbor as yourself. Anyway, you create yourself with your repeated statements of I am, conscious or unconscious. I am unworthy.
I was sensing that his connection was weak, as I'm sure you guys were, because it was a little spotty. So I'm not certain whether he'll come right back or he'll go off completely and we have to reconnect. I'm going to say, just so we don't have dead air and we can wait for Leslie in an empowering moment, I would invite a dialogue. I would invite a dialogue with anyone who wants to unmic and make a comment about, here he is. Good, he's back.
I'm back. Sorry again. Who knows? It says unknown error. I don't know. Maybe they're getting tired of me. Anyway.
Les, no, you were a little spotty, and don't worry about it. Just when that happens, this is all recorded, as you said, and your thoughts were coming through. But if you get interrupted again and you go off, just stay with it and come back. We're all fully engaged and just waiting for you. So we'll keep the conversation going.
All right, super. So let me see if I can play this again. All right. Just to continue this, again, we're getting so close to the end, okay? As I was saying, I am an individual aspect of Prime Creator, and as such, I've been endowed with the ability to create whatever I can conceive and believe, okay? And whatever I can conceive and believe, according to Napoleon Hill, I can create. Simple, right? Okay, here we are, finally down to the written thing, okay? And I'm going to show you this in a second when we turn off my screen. The power of the written word, okay? You're going to write these things down. Here's the exercise. You're going to write down what is possible for me. That's your imagination. That's the conceptualizations, okay? And that's in all aspects of your life. Then you're going to write down what truly calls out to me. This is my soul food. These are my ideals. Then you're going to write down what does that look like? How would I define it? So that's the visualization, but it's written down. Then you're going to write down, does it arouse my deep passion? Does it inspire me to action? That's the emotional content. And then you're going to write down what steps do I need to take? This is the practical stuff, so pay attention. What resources do I need? And then you're going to ask yourself, what can I do right now to kickstart this action plan? And then you're going to create 2 lists for each day. One is a to-do list and one is a to-do list. Okay, and that's your plan. You're going to work your plan. Okay, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so the power of the written word. Okay, plan your work and work your plan. You create a timeline for yourself because everything exists in time and space, right? And I don't care what that timeline is, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, whatever it is for whatever little project you're working on. Okay, in this case, I've got 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 1 month, 1 week, and now. Okay, it comes right back down to what can I do today? Okay, that means that's where your to-do list comes from. Okay, right? Where am I going to be in 5 years? What do I need to be in 3 years, 1 year, 1 month, 1 week? And what can I do right now to move towards that 5-year goal or that 5-year vision, that 5-year ideal? Okay, what can I do now? That's your to-do list. Okay, so you create the timeline, work backwards from that, boom, come up with your to-do list. Okay, so new habits, must-have habits, must-have habits. Okay, so it's a couple of nice quotes here. Okay, so Janet has entered the waiting room. Too bad, Janet, I have no control over my, so I can't let you in. Okay, one from James Allen. Okay, you can read it. Second habit from John Dryden. First we make our habits, then our habits make us. Critical, best statement ever. Okay, each day, number 1 habit, upon arising, get in touch with your superconscious mind, express gratitude for all your blessings, review your written ideals, read them out loud, review your to-do list, prioritize items, and start immediately with priority number 1. Put the coffee on, get your ass in gear, work on priority number 1. At the end of each day, get in touch with infinite intelligence. Okay, express gratitude for all the things that you're in the process of creating because they come from infinite intelligence. That's where you want to be connected, right? Add to your to-do list. And not what's your to-do list? The things you actually accomplished today. Check them off. That's my to-do list. Celebrate you. You did this. You created something, right? Boom, celebrate. Okay. And then create from that your to-do list for tomorrow so that when you wake up in the morning, you have a to-do list to refer to, and then you prioritize, etc. And the cycle repeats. And it won't let me change slides. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the geometry of the universe is be important because the geometry of creation, everything is geometry. Everything, science, behind the science of geometry. Galileo says mathematics is the language of God, in which God has written the universe. Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe and think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. John Wheeler, one of my favorite guys in the whole planet, long now dead, of course, too. Process and reality. The physics of the universe is geometry. And Pythagoras, that great old wonderful man by the name of Pythagoras, who's responsible for old music theory and a squared plus b squared equals c squared and all of that kind of stuff. And all the wonderful secret schools that he wrote. Number is the ruler of forms and ideas, and geometry is the knowledge of the eternal existent. And I'm going to skip this because we spent so much. This is just another little cute little meditation thing. We're going to skip it. It'll be in the recording for you. And we're going to go on to this, which is the second last slide. And so I'm going to tell you that encoded into this presentation is the message that it is your consciousness and the focus of your attention that brings the universe into being. Think about that. Your consciousness and the focus of your attention brings the universe into being. It's a supraliminal message from your supra-conscious self. Okay? The so-called Big Bang that created the universe was just you waking up to self-awareness. Think about that for a second. All acts of creation begin with conceptualization, and when you conceive of anything, you will give birth to it if you follow the process I have outlined for you, unless you abort it through self-doubt or self-sabotage. So you believe in you, believe in your ideals, believe in their actuality, believe in their reality. Anything the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve. There's some further education stuff for you. Basically, the Book of Views, a book I suggest you read. Think and Grow Rich is another book you think you read. And if you've read it already, read it again. If you've read it again, read it again. And again. Okay. And if you need a shortcut to it, you can go to my YouTube channel and you can watch Napoleon Hill's 13 Secrets Revealed. And you can watch a set of 5 videos called Step into Success and another set of 5 videos called Live Success Now. And then you can watch Consciousness, Creativity, and Contribution, a set of 6 videos, and you will have a really solid education about the conscious creation of success. Okay. And it still doesn't want to change slides. So in any case, the last slide just says that we are stop share. Now moving into Q&A time. Okay. So I'll come up to that. I stop share. Come back to that. Admit Janet to the core thing. She's been waiting and I haven't had control of my mouse until now. And anybody who has any questions, this is Q&A time. We're still recording. I am going to turn off the recording, I believe, unless, what do you think? Should I leave it on? I always think that people have more privacy. They tend to ask more open questions, but on the other hand,
I would turn it off. I mean, that would just be my suggestion. People are more likely to participate, I would think.
yeah, that's the way I feel about it too. Okay, sorry, all you people are only watching the recording. We're going to turn off the Q&As, even though you might benefit from them, because people like privacy. Me too. Ciao. Stop recording.